Today we're talking about why the INFJ is hyper-focused on other people's emotional responses. We as INFJs have the capacity to understand others on a very deep level. We know this. The situation is, though, that we're not using it as a skill. It's not something we can turn off or turn on whenever we feel like it. It leads us to being in situations where we feel absolutely everything. They become a burden to us and we don't even want it to happen. It means you're going into a room and there's a person who's depressed, you feel it all. It means that if you get to know somebody and you see that they're struggling internally, we're directly addicted to that. Because for us, it seems like I'm the only person who can see that. I can save this person. Nobody's aware of how much this person suffers. And so of course I feel obligated to do that. What kind of person would I be to see somebody so much in pain and not help them? More often than not, this person will not be okay with you going up to them and saying, by the way, I know that you have a problem and I will help you. So what does the INFJ do? The INFJ pretends like you're all equals, but in the end, you're always looking at it from the situation of how can I help that person? And believe it or not, this unhealthy person then tends to actually not be thankful and to let their anger out on you because they know that you can handle it. So today we're going to talk about why the INFJ is so hyper-focused on those emotional responses. Is it something we can switch off? And if that is the case, how? And then the question also arises, do we want to switch it off? Isn't that what makes us human? Isn't that what makes us us? Today we're going to talk about all of those things and how we can make the best out of it and actually turn it around to something that is making us happy and others. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you haven't done this so far, to download the poster on the formula to an INFJ Epic Life. And if you want to take it to the next level, then get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. The INFJ as a child has the ability to be really good at reading other people and being in their own mind. The functions that come later in life aren't as developed in early, childhood. And so therefore, we're pretty much our first two functions. We are all about making others feel something and being in our own mind. As in FE externally, so our second function, extroverted feeling, and introverted intuition, our first function. And so if we have any person in our life that is in any kind of way unstable, we will get hyper-focused on that person because what we learn is that that person isn't predictable. There's nothing we can do in order to make that situation feel safe. And as children, we all need safety. So what does the INFJ learn in this situation? What kind of coping mechanism are we using? We're using the skills that we have available. And the skills we have available at that moment is to become hyper aware of what is going on, what isn't the way it should be, and learn how to navigate that, right? We learn to pick up that situation through our first function and then how to use our second function, so extroverted feeling, to make the other person feel something. So we become hyper-focused on exactly those two things. And if you as a child start building up that skill, it feels like that's the only way to live. We do this on autopilot, and we learn that if we don't do this, what will happen? Well, that relationship with that adult won't be intact anymore, right? You can't rely on any kind of security. And you as a child, because you are so much in need of consistency and safety, learn a coping mechanism that is all based on you making sure what happens, how that person reacts when they're not feeling perfectly fine, because they would lash out onto you or they would talk to you in any kind of way that would make you feel abandoned, right? They would withhold their love. They would withhold their, responsibility as an adult to keep you safe. All of those things, right? This is just psychologically speaking, and it doesn't have to be that deep. These kind of situations happen to almost everybody. You always have some kind of adult in your life. It may be a parent, it may be a teacher, it may be somebody in kindergarten, it may be a parent of a friend who isn't that stable, as in like emotionally speaking. Other children have different kind of coping mechanisms. They might, become very aggressive or, do something else. We learn to be hyper aware of what's going on. And we're doing this in order to avoid abandonment. And if this is how you've learned it, if this is how you've, embodied it and have just taught yourself that this is how life works, you carry this with yourself until you're an adult. And so nowadays, you're always going to be safe in that regard, right? If that person doesn't like you, nothing's going to happen. You are an adult yourself. But the point is that those abandonment issues will still come up. So we believe that if we are not hyper-focused on that person and how they feel, what's going to happen? We are going to be unlovable. That is something that we carry with ourselves. And this is something I've seen in so many INFJs. It's not even funny. So what is the solution here? Well, first off, we have to make it conscious. We have to be aware that this is happening. So ask yourself, let's say you would meet somebody and you will see how much they're suffering. What would happen if you wouldn't take care of them? Right? They would continue living on their life, but you would feel, if I would do that, I will turn into a person who has no reason to ever be loved. I would be completely selfish. I would be a bad person. This is just unbearable. The story behind it, though, is that you are afraid of being unlovable and therefore you're going to get abandoned. Because you have taught yourself as a child that if you make sure that you're fine, if you make sure that it's not your responsibility on how that person feels, then you are not safe. You are not lovable. So the only way you are lovable is if you take responsibility for how that person feels. And that's what it actually is. How often you're actually in a situation where you have to make sure that friend A doesn't say something negatively to friend B because that would hurt friend B and you feel responsible for that. This is not your fight. These are not your emotions. That does not mean that you cannot consciously say to yourself, I want to help that person. I think it's rational. I think it's right to help that person in that situation. But it's one thing to do this consciously because you've thought it through, you see that this has a positive outcome, and you're not hurting yourself. It's a completely different scenario when you're doing this on autopilot. You're doing it unconsciously and even at the price of your own well-being. So how do we make this conscious? How do we avoid getting in these situations that we feel like we have no control over? The first thing is we have to become aware that this is a choice, that this is not how we have to think, although it feels like the only way to think. When you're in this situation, when you feel this way, there's not one part of you that would say, oh, I have a choice now. I'm aware of this. Trust me, it is because you've conditioned yourself to think in that direction. And you can teach yourself to not do this anymore. In order to make that happen, we have to become aware of the consequences of not doing that. The consequences are that on some level, you believe you're unlovable. And you cannot tell yourself, oh, you are lovable. Because it's like your 4-year-old version is within you, and that 4-year-old version believes, if I don't listen, if I am not hyper-focused on how others respond, then I'm unlovable. That is what the 4-year-old version of you believes. This is just an example, but let's say that 4-year-old version of you believes that. The moment you say, no, you are lovable, what you're actually saying to that 4-year-old version of yourself is, your opinion doesn't matter. I'm not listening to you. And this kind of approach doesn't help you. The point is that you say to that child, yes, I understand that you feel unlovable. And although you feel unlovable, I as an adult will love you. But you have to face the fact that at 4 years old, this did happen. There was an unstable adult in any kind of capacity. Again, this doesn't have to be a psychopath. This can be a normal person, but somebody that your 4-year-old version classified as not safe. And it did happen. So no matter how you feel now as an adult, you have to face the fact that this happened and you have to grieve it. That child was not safe. It is a fact that that child, you as a small kid, were not able to be yourself, to be focused on your emotions, to firstly be focused on how you are feeling, and doing this and at the same time feeling safe. And you have to mourn that. You have to grieve that. if those emotions come up, it will feel like you are unlovable, right? You have to face the fact that on some level you feel unlovable and to say, although others are not going to love me, if I choose myself, my adult self is going to love myself. I'm going to protect my inner child. I'm going to make sure that I'm safe. And I'm going to do that by choosing me, right? By being in situations where you could help another person, but you know you would have to do it at your own expense and they're going to put you down because they're hurting, that you say, I want to help this person. I know how to help this person, but I'm only going to help people if that means that I'm going to be safe. And if that's not the case, then I'm not helping. I deserve to use the skills that I do have in order to help people who want to be helped, who are going to respect me in a way of, okay, I'm allowing you to help me. Please help me. I'm thankful for your help. Let's be honest. Most of the time, the people that we're helping aren't really thinking that. They wouldn't want us to be that person in their life. They wouldn't feel comfortable accepting or asking for that help. So once you get to a situation like this and you become aware of this is what's going on, maybe you are in a situation right now and your intuition would tell you help that person, although that person doesn't appreciate it, and then help even more. Go even more out of your way to show them and prove to them that you just have good intentions. Ask yourself rationally, is that person helping you in any kind of way? Is this person appreciating you? Are they actively showing you that they're thankful? Or are they trying to avoid that? If that is the case, then choose you. And do this knowing that you're going to feel bad. That no matter what you're telling yourself, you cannot prove to that 4-year-old version of yourself that she or he is not being abandoned, right? This is just evoking emotions that happened way back when. And at that moment, it really felt, if you're choosing yourself, you're going to get abandoned. And they have learned to suppress that feeling by taking on all of those coping mechanisms. We don't want that anymore. This is holding us back. We have over 60,000 thoughts in a day, and I don't know how many decisions. And most of those are happening on autopilot. If you are making decisions based on this fear of abandonment, you're keeping your life and yourself so small. And you're not experiencing life fully. So choose yourself in these situations. Say, although I see that person is suffering, I would also be suffering if I would help them because they're actually putting me down. They're making me, make myself small in order to not make them uncomfortable. And this is a price I'm not willing to pay anymore. I'm going to choose me first because only when I'm good, my cup of energy is overflowing and I can help myself and others. I will never again help others if that means I cannot act out of, integrity. And integrity doesn't mean that you're just acting with a clear conscience. It also means that you're acting in a way that is respecting yourself, that you're not allowing others to put you down just because you can help them. And those fears that will come up, this feeling of abandonment, this feeling of being unlovable, that is something we just have to face. We have to feel it in order to heal it. And approach it from a perspective of, I'd rather be disliked for who I am than to be loved for somebody that I'm not. Because that's not real love to begin with. That is conditional love. That is saying the only way I am acceptable and, lovable is when I make myself small in order to make others feel good. And you deserve to be loved and liked for liking yourself, for choosing the path that you're on, for doing things that make you proud of yourself and in a way where you decide how you want to contribute to the world, to your family, to, your environment. You make that choice and not be put in a situation where it's like you have to keep yourself small in order to make that other person feel comfortable and then you're going to be okay. And trust me, once you get into this situation, you actually are evoking those emotions. You get to feel them, you get to grieve them, you get to mourn them, to heal all of it. And then you can go through your life and make conscious choices when you're going to use that skill. When you're going to say, I'm helping that person or I'm not helping that person. You will never again feel like you have to help people, although it's not a healthy situation. You get to make that choice. And that's what I want for you. for you to be able to make that choice and not to feel like it's something you have to do because otherwise you're unlovable. If you want some more guidelines on how to make that happen, to choose that path for you and to go on that adventure I call the INFJ Epic Life, then get the poster on the formula to an INFJ Epic Life. And if you want to take it to the next level, then get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. Everything you know you can find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video when the INFJ stops trying to be social. This is what happens.